Well, hello everybody. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back, Mars. Hello to everybody who's joined. Paolo and Cynthia still in here. Everybody else. I put the comic links in there because I see some new faces who might want to resit. Hello, Pastry Puff. Nice seeing you. Welcome, welcome. Yes, today is a very special stream, isn't it?
Yes. And this was by request.
This was by request.
Very, very
Just
special
Sunday
indeed.
by request as well, right?
Yeah, and you know what? We wanted to deliver on what people wanted.
It's what the people want. We make it happen. Your wish is our strong suggestion. And I won't say command. That you know, we gotta have some boundaries there, but strong suggestion indeed. Well, what are we doing today? We're doing surprisingly a bit more of a, what's the word? Structured stream than normal, in a sense.
Definitely more structured.
At least on my end.
It's gonna be hard to derail us on this one.
Mars is, well, you could probably do, honestly, it's never hard to derail me, ever, so you could probably do it very easily. That is not the thing. But we do have a very central goal that will take as long as it takes, unlike sort of just talking forever and ever. But yeah, you are still all welcome to ask any question that strikes your fancy. And we will definitely get off topic.
You may have
no promises
about the comic or the characters. the creative process. We are more than happy to
And
answer.
I'll be doing something you guys rarely see on stream, which is not using the mirror tool. And the reason for that, oh god, wow, startled
The world's
me, Mars.
ending.
Now the reason
The world's gonna end, you guys.
No. I actually never use the mirror tool in the comic ever at all. That's actually a really funny thing. I never use the mirror tool in the comic. Because what is the mirror tool for? And other digital art things. They're to make your life easier. Now, the reason I don't use them in the comic is not because they don't. Well, it is in a way because they don't make my life easier in the comic. And the reason for that is because rulers in that amount of layers. No, enthuse. Ruler is for, honestly, without the mirror tool, I probably couldn't do the amount of art streams we do that is me like actually doing something, because that's like a lot of brain power, right? That's a lot of brain power. But I do know that a lot of you don't have art tablets and thus don't have access to a mirror tool because you are using traditional pen and paper and thus, or pencil and paper, and thus don't have access to a mirror tool. And so, for your benefit, for our lovely chat's benefit, our lovely viewers, readers of the comics benefit, I will be showing without the mirror tool. So, it's all for you guys. It's all for you guys.
That way you
and
can
I will
draw
also
Hosen, Milano, and the gang right at home.
Yeah, I'll also be doing it without the moving around. I have to erase. I will use layers, and now the reason I will use layers, because you do have layers in real life. All you need to get
Please
layers
elaborate.
in traditional pencil and paper drawings is to get a kneaded eraser. They're very inexpensive. If you don't have a kneaded eraser and can't get access to go to the store or Amazon to purchase one for like 50 cents, they're very, very cheap. All you need is tape. You stick it to your fingers a couple times so you make it not super sticky, and then you stick it to your pencil drawing and it lifts off the pencil.
Now, who taught you that trick?
Me and my genius mind. I thought about it and did it. However, it does use up a lot of tape because it does, after a certain time, the graphite, it's full of graphite and you can't use that piece of tape anymore. Unlike a kneaded eraser, which you knead it in together and it magically disappears. The kneadedness, the graphite in the eraser. It's not magical, it just eats a lot of graphite, but unlike tape. I hope I'm making at least a tiny little bit of sense here. That's what makes an eraser needed. It is a very, very specific kind of eraser called a kneaded eraser. It feels like, almost like silly putty. I will show an example. Kneaded eraser. If you just look up kneaded eraser, you can probably find it.
This is my first time hearing of a kneaded eraser as well.
Really? Well,
yeah, it doesn't come up very often.
Okay, making sure my location is not in Google here. It doesn't seem to be. So this is a kneaded eraser. Many, many kinds here. Okay, they're usually gray. I have ones that come colored. But the whole point is, yeah, you can tear them off, but they're like putty. Okay, they're like putty, and their biggest, to me, use is not that, they show a lot of this where it's like making little bits and they're fully erasing. The biggest use for them, you make it into a ball, you make it into a log, and you just roll that log, you roll it over your piece of art, your pencil drawing. And that is the equivalent of putting the layer below on a lighter opacity. Okay? So I will be using layers because you have layers in real life. Okay? That is my whole thing.
That's wild.
Well, Nixioto, make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, yeah. Kneaded erasers, godsend. I can't draw in my sketchbook without a kneaded eraser because I gotta tell you, step 1, ugly as hell. Step 2, after the kneaded eraser, now it looks like I can draw again. Step 1 doesn't look like I can draw. Welcome, thank you for the follow, Nixioto. Again, correct me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But yes, if you want to get anything into traditional art with pencil and paper, kneaded eraser, amazing investment. Again, very, very inexpensive. Well, I'm glad I got it right. First try. We're winning. We're winning stream now because I got
Hell
your name
yeah.
right first try. Alrighty. Are there any further starting questions? I think I've gotten to everything. We will start with Hotsun because he is the first boy. There is an order that I always think about them in, so we will be going in that order. And it's...
Well, it makes sense because Hotsun was the main... Well, he is the main
He
character,
is the main.
but he was also
the first drawn
character we created.
It goes Hotsun, Milano, Ferrex, Synod, Aster. That is the order for whatever reason. There you go. All right. I'm not seeing any questions, so we shall begin with Hotsun.
I think we are.
All right. This is honestly very I'm a little nervous. It's not like I draw these characters all the time, but it's hard to
You can do it, Ori.
talk about it at the same time, you know? I might have to make my canvas smaller because my thing is not happy with me right now.
Oh no.
It's just streaming and doing everything. It's being a little upset with me. But now we're good. All right. Oh, using the wrong pencil already. Okay, so we're just drawing busts.
Now,
that's
I
easiest.
was about to say, are we doing a bust or a full
Yeah,
body?
I don't think my brain could comprehend a full body at this moment right now. Okay, so we'll start. We do, the head, right? That's the big thing about Outcast characters. They all have specific different head shapes, different hair shapes, different eye shapes. These are all very conscious things for me, okay? I made them really important. So you draw a head. The way I do it is draw a circle. I like to draw that line down the middle. Very nice. Okay, we're drawing Hotsun. Hotsun has a long, rounded point face, and the reason I said rounded point is he doesn't have icicle chin. Okay, it rounds off as the bottom. Ferrex has the pointiest chin, so you have to make sure that Hotsun has a less pointy chin than that. But he has a longer face. So he has the longest face, really, of the entire Outcast group. But it's definitely long, it's, a little slender. And so I just come around there. I'm gonna say a lot of it is eyeballing it. I really gotta say, a lot of it is just sort of eyeballing it, going over it, seems right. Great. Hotsun has normal human ears. They usually go, the way I put ears is right where the circle meets kind of the chin line. That's like the center of the ear. It kind of comes like this. I just kind of scoop them in. I don't really do a lot of detailed ear stuff. You want to make sure they're relatively the right height. I'm struggling, but that's fine. Also, this is kind of weird because I normally sketch in colored things, but I won't for this. Okay. And then he has his neck, of course, just sort of comes down. Again, another thing I kind of eyeball. You don't want him too big. His head is not as big as his neck. His neck is thinner than his head. I always bring the neck down in kind of V shape like this. Just helps me follow, sort of segmenting everything. And then you have his shoulders coming down. I am going to use undo. You have an eraser. It's the same thing. It's just easier to do. The whole thing. You have an eraser.
Yes,
you can erase
an
a line.
eraser is equivalent to Control Z.
It is when I'm making big sweeping lines. If I have to go back now at this point, like I'm not going to undo the whole thing. But, if I draw a line and I don't like it, the equivalent of just erasing it is just undoing it, come on. It's not that different. So he's definitely not, Hotsun's definitely not super broad. Okay, I'm solely just moving this to recenter it. And so the way I like to draw busts is I kind of cut them off like this, kind of like you would see a bust in like marble. They kind of have this kind of front bit come down to the chest and everything like that. It's kind of longer in the front. They kind of swoop over. I don't do that. I just do kind of like this. That is true, Nixioto.
Nixioto.
You subscribe. Oh, thank you, Paolo. I appreciate it. Glad to have you join us. Okay. So, this is where I would do my very first kneaded eraser. So what does that mean? That's a layer. I'm going to bring the layer down to about 50%. We're going to add another layer on top of it. Because I'm not drawing in colors, it'll make it really difficult to see and really muddy if I don't do this. Alright. So usually next what I like to do is I like to draw the hair. Hudson has this sort of like weird faux underside cut. I just start to do a bunch of scribbles. Yeah, no, that's exactly a pastry puff. That's why when I draw in my sketchbook, the first sketch I like have to remind myself that I do hate this and I will hate this, and then I do the kneaded eraser, lighten it up, find the good bit, and then I'm like, I can draw without the tools of, you know, digital art. Like, I am not a fraud. Because sometimes I look at that and I go, whew, such is life, you know? Such is life.
Such is life indeed.
So Hotson's...
That happens in the writing department too, so I can respect that.
Hotson's hair is off to his left, our right, when he's looked in the front. So somewhere over here. It's not fully halfway down this quarter of his head. It's a little closer to the middle, but it is, you know, off center. So usually I start and I just come up and I do a swoop. He's got one swoop up. He's got two swoops up. Now, he's got two swoops up. Then this last swoop comes down, and then it's kind of like an S comes into his face. Okay, so he's about halfway down his ear, comes into his face. So there, that's his top of his hair. Okay, then he has a middle swoop that swoops to the right, like this, and it comes back like an S to meet back up with his hairline. Okay, that's his that's the top bit. He's got one little hair piece that comes down the side here, and then he has his buzzed part of his hair. So you have to draw the hairline. So his hairline comes down towards the ear, down right past the ear and over, and then it comes up next to the ear. That's like his sideburn. Now at the top of the head, it's a little bigger than his head. Okay? It's not flush against his head. It's bigger. So these two lines don't meet. You see that there? Those two lines don't meet. His ear is what is connecting the two. Okay? So usually his ear doesn't show on the other side. His ear does show on the undercut side. Yep. That's a big thing. Then he has one little ahoge is what I learned, the hair antenna. Okay, he's got one of those.
Ori loves their hair antenna.
I love my hair antenna. Everybody has it. Mars has them. I have them. Dylan has them, but the horn usually blocks it, so you don't really see it, but he has them. Then, Hudson gets two little extra things that are very much not realistic, but I like how they look, so we add them. He's got down where his chin and his neck meet, you get this two little sprig, right? It comes out and then goes into the neck, right? Like that. Just to give the illusion of something going on and the hair back there. And then on his right side, our left side, he has his braid. Now, the way I used to draw the braid before I have it like wrote, because I've drawn him literally hundreds of times, is I start at the side and I drag it down in, right? So this is the middle of the braid, this line. So that's why you don't want the line to touch the neck. There's hair volume to it, okay? And it comes down, you know, kind of right below his collarbone. You kind of bring one in to the side like that, and you mirror it on the other side. That's one braid. You do that again. You kind of start in the middle, you bring it in, and you do it again on the other side. That's two braids. Okay, 3 braids. 4 braids. I almost said Dylan. Hudson has 4 braids before, roughly. Hello, Mason. Welcome.
Hi, Mason.
Before you have his little hair tie, which is just, you know, a little piece. And then he has 3 little sprigs out here like this. Okay, they kind of mirror his head hair. See how this one mirrors his head hair up there? That's how it works. Sometimes I add this little one, this little stick out there, because it's kind of messy. He's not like perfectly put together. He has been on an island. And then you can just erase a little bit here that stuck out. And there's his braid. You do want the braid to get kind of smaller near the end. I didn't do a great job of that here, but you know, you can kind of fix that a little bit by going over it. The braid segments get kind of smaller near the end. I mean, you know, if you have hair long enough or you search the internet, that's what happens with braids. It gets smaller as you get to the end. So there's his braids. Next, we do the outfit. I usually do the face last. That's just who I am. So we do the outfit. So Hotson has on a buttoned-up collared shirt. So usually you start about halfway around the neck. You come in. And again, at any time, if anybody wants to ask a question, go ahead. Any question. Doesn't have to be related. So kind of bring it in.
Ori's explaining stuff, but you can still ask questions. I am here as well. I may be able to answer some that you may have. Just pop in at any time.
Exactly. Okay, so you bring it in towards, again, about halfway up the neck. Bring it in towards the center. Now, it doesn't touch the center, and the reason for that is because he has a lines of buttons. So there's actually a little flat line in the middle because the buttons, the two corners of the collar, don't click.
Oh,
well, thank you for popping
Mason.
in, Mason.
Thank you for
Happy
coming
to
in.
be able to say hi to you. Always nice to see you for however long. And then you sort of bring this down. This inner piece should be longer than this outer piece, and then you just connect them. That's one side. You repeat on the other side. Obviously, you know, you want them to be as symmetrical as you possibly can. Like that. Kind of follows collarbone. So now that little flat piece in the middle, I take the corners and I just bring it straight down. That's his row of shirt buttons. Bring it down on both sides. And then you just add buttons. Evenly spaced. Not too many, not too little. There is not a set amount. It changes at any given moment. That's just how it is. Okay. Then he has his jacket, which has another collar. That collar is bigger than his shirt collar. So I usually start a little higher than it, and I bring it down like this, and a little swoop, because it's fabric. It's not that stiff, you know. It's not as stiff as his shirt collar. So I have this little indent here, and then I bring it down to his shoulder. It's usually about halfway the shoulder, and that's the collar. You then start back right above the collar and bring a line straight down. That's the side of the jacket. Now you kind of repeat eyeballing it on the other side because his braid's in the way. Like that. And good. All right, there's your sort of mirror. They're not gonna be perfectly identical, and that's fine because your clothes aren't perfectly identical. So he has a jacket lapel, so I usually bring from here out, then straight in, then diagonally out to roughly the same distance, and then I bring it in. Now, on a bust, it usually doesn't connect back to the zipper portion or button portion of the jacket, but, you know, if you continued it on, it would. But usually on a bust, it doesn't. Again, you just try to mimic that on the other side. I don't know if you can see my stylus pen very well, but essentially what I did is I moused over here and then kind of did my best to do a straight line over here to kind of connect where it would be. And I would do that again and then bring it in. So it's just kind of eyeballing that. You could even use a straight edge if you wanted it to be perfect, but that's sort of that, like that. Okay, I would probably clean up this line. They don't look identical.
Kind of like a gentle curve almost.
Yeah, it is. A little curve there. Okay, we're almost done with his clothes. Then you kind of just follow his shoulder line. You go a little past his shoulder line. He has a big jacket. His jacket is large. Okay, in a bust, usually right around the edge of the bust is where he's got this little button clasp. Okay, it's just kind of a rectangle that just sort of goes over the jacket. And he's got a little button there. And now, because that button is doing something, it is morphing the fabric in some way, I usually add this little stick out bit, and it comes in. I'll probably change that a little bit. Doesn't look exactly right. Probably go like that. Something like that. There you go. Then this line just connects here, and that's the bottom of that bust. Repeat on the other side. You know, as identical as you can, but, you know, sketchy is nice sometimes, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
Ori, were you taught to draw this way, or is this something you kind of pieced together for yourself?
It's very difficult to say, in the sense of that I am 98% self-taught, and that 2% is a singular art class in college, whatever art education I got during grade school, and one comic-related online art course I took with a webcomic creator I enjoy. So 90% of this is me existing and doing art very frequently for about 8 years, and like every single day for about 2 to 3 years now. I think 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how we got here. If I didn't know how to draw something, that internet, right? How to draw this. And then I would take that information and do it until I liked how it looked. And, so my style, right? I would go, I look at artists that I enjoy, and I would see, oh, how did they draw hair? How did they do this? A lot of my early art sketchbooks have little notes that I would take that was me attempting to, by visual, copy sort of the style of an artist that I liked. Like, they drew Marinette from Miraculous Ladybug, and I really liked, you hate all notes on? No, oh, you hate all notifications on? I think that's what it said. Notifications make everything very annoying. It's one of those difficult things. But I would like see how an artist I like drew Marinette, and I would try to draw Marinette, looking at it as reference. I wouldn't trace over. Tracing is helpful. But, my biggest thing was trying to look at something and then recreate it on the paper. And then I would take that information and then try to do it without looking at it, right? Looking at the thing I drew. And then that sort of morphed into how my style is. Just sort of looking things up and going at it. Because art is mainly a hobby, even now I would still call it my hobby over everything else. It's just practice, Paolo. This is after, like I said, 8 years of what I would consider drawing pretty frequently, and about 3 years of drawing every single day, almost.
Definitely a lot of dedication to the craft.
It's something one of our friends, Cinderblock Sally, always says is that when he considers the people that are artists and consider themselves artists, like, can't live without it. And I very much feel that, right? To not draw is almost difficult. I go on vacation and I take my sketchbook with me. Yeah, 8 years. And that's honestly, Paolo, low for a lot of artists, I know on the internet. While I did do doodles much younger than that, I never really consider that specifically like trying to be better at art. It wasn't until about 10th, I consider 10th grade. I found Tumblr, I found Gravity Falls, Monster Falls AU, and I loved Deer Purse so much. And that to me
and the
is
rest
the inciting
was history,
incident.
Basically,
was essentially very much the like, I want to draw that. I want to be able to draw that. And that's to here we are. Yeah. And always learning, always changing, always improving. Art that I have from a year ago is significantly different than what I draw now. And that's
you recently developed a new style for shading.
Yeah, that was rather recent. That was this past year.
That was incredibly recent.
The hair lines in the shading, that's just this past year. For a long time, it was all cell shading. Until literally this year, it's not anymore, because I literally was like, I'm gonna try something. And then everyone was like, ooh, including me. Everyone was like, ooh. And I went, yeah, it is ooh, isn't it? Let's go.
It was very close. It was your version of a painterly style.
It was as close as I'm gonna get, because I really
gorgeous.
Just can't do the time to go full painterly. One other thing I usually add to Hotson's clothes is I usually add something like these 2 lines here. You can see it on other art of mine. It's like a little wrinkle I like to add that sort of shows the chest versus like the stomach, right? Because even if you're like a guy, you still have like area there. It's still a different plane than your ribs. Right? That's the word I want. It's a different plane, right? Your chest will stick out more than your stomach. Not 90% of the time. Of course, if you're drawing like a larger character, you're going to have different, like Olus. Olus doesn't have that, usually. I don't usually have that. But that's all because you don't like get fat on your like sternum. It just doesn't accumulate there. So you are always going to have a little bit of a concave right there in the middle of your chest. All right, finishing up.
There's definitely that trick of balancing character design with anatomy.
Do you
ever find that balance challenging?
I find that my style is relatively close to how humans should be 90% of the time. I find something very funny. Dylan will always say, when I show him like the skeleton, sort of, right, like before I put clothes and everything on him, that the way I draw a skeleton makes it look like everybody has a very short torso. But then when I put the clothes on, it's like where he thinks the hips and everything are is not where they are. And there's also a very funny thing I do. I personally, as a human, wear pants at my waist, not at my hips. So a lot of characters that I draw their pants at their waist, not their hips, because that's how I like to, like, it's literally because that's how I like to wear pants. So it's it's an illusion, right? If you're expecting jeans to be on someone's hips, and they don't have like a snatched waist, right? It can be like an illusion where it looks like they have a short torso, but it's not. I'm just a weirdo on how I like to wear my pants. So Hotsun wears his pants at his waist, which is weird for like normal humans. I have to like force myself to put certain pants at like the hips. You know, it's a very interesting thing. But that's a human preference overall, not really a style preference.
That's very fascinating.
All right, so I on my characters, I do like to add these little lines. That's sort of your neck muscle. I like to add them. It's how they look. They are stylized. If you look at a real human, they're a little different. That's just my personal preference. You don't have to add them. You could add an Adam's apple to people. I have sometimes. Every once in a while, I'm like, yes, I will do it. Not all the time. Hotsun has one, so, you know, whatever you would like. All right. Now, the part that everybody finds very difficult. Will we ever get low-rise jeans, Hotsun? Probably not.
Maybe in Band AU, who knows?
Most of the time he's fairly covered, and that's the whole thing. But, yeah, I don't know. I think the closest was when the Leprechauns AU, the belt got taken away. That's probably the very closest anything ever came. But, all right.
Well, those fans were really low.
When the belt came off, yeah. But, so, the other thing that I very highly recommend, and yes, you can do this in traditional art, is turn your canvas. Not necessarily upside down, but you can turn it upside down. Turn your canvas. It is much easier to draw certain shapes and lines at different angles. So it can be a little weird because you're not looking face on, but I will almost always turn my canvas to draw eyes. Okay? That's just how it is.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Ori, because that's triggering another question for me. Is there like not a taboo per se, but you say that in a way where it's like artists kind of have this idea like, no, you should never turn your canvas. You should always work on this angle. Like, is that something you've come across? Is that common for artists?
So there's a lot of quote unquote rules that will circle around the artist community. And the reason for this is that people do things a certain way and thus can impart onto impressionable people, young artists, budding artists, however old you are. Young is relative to how much you've drawn and not how old you are. You can start art at any age. There's certain things that they find taboo and so in parts, and then there's people that sort of perpetuate these things, right? Sort of thing like people saying like tracing is bad. It's not flat out bad, right? Tracing is how you learn how to do things. It's bad if you trace something and try to post it as your own work. That's bad. That's stealing. You know, there's no question there. But if you find a picture of a ballerina and you want to draw over it in order to figure out how the anatomy works, that is something I did in art class. In that one art class I took, was doing that, was learning where the bones are, where the joints are, how the body twists, right? Like, that was exercises that we did. Now, I'm not going and posting that somewhere and saying, oh, look at this 100% original artwork. You know, that's bad. I want to tell you, there are references for these characters, our characters, on our Discord in the wiki. All 5 of them have full-on references. Now, they don't have straight-on references, but they do have full-body references and general ideas of it. Use them. I have to use them sometimes. Mars corrected me once that I colored Hotsun wrong. You know, even though I've drawn this character 80 times, hundreds
That
of
was just
times,
the
it's a whole
eyebrows,
thing.
though. It wasn't like egregious.
But the point is that I still made a mistake, right? You know, the point is that this is the character I designed. I draw almost every single day, and I still mess it up. So now imagine drawing something new, right? Imagine drawing something you've never drawn before. Imagine drawing something you don't draw very often. Use reference. Yeah, amorphous blob on the inside. One of the references right now. Well, there you go, pastry puff. See? Very useful, very helpful. All right, so eyes. Eyes, they're usually kind of about mid-ear, what I do for Hotsun. A little lower than that, it looks like. You draw the line on a curve, okay? The line is not straight across the face, because the face is not flat. The face is round. Your head is an orb. Then I like to draw the eyes. Now, this is where I definitely don't follow normal human anatomy. They all have bigger eyes than a human should, because, yeah, anime's better, okay? We're just, you know, the eyes are important. We want to see them. We want to look at them. I like them. So then I draw two circles about that.
Get so much emotion through the eyes
yeah.
as well. It just makes sense to kind of go that route.
Hotsun's circles are usually end at where his, like, original circle is. You can see that. And then they're kind of centered on that line. Use your kneaded eraser. Soften those guidelines. Alrighty. Yes. Turn the canvas. And the reason I said is because, you know, traditional artists with painters and painting using easel, you can't turn the canvas. You can't do it. It's not set up like that. But drawing on a piece of paper, a sketchbook, you know, a post-it note in your art program, it is easier to draw in certain directions than it is to draw in other directions, right? You'll find that making a curve, I can make a curve much better this way, that's how my hand draws, than trying to force myself to do it this way. It's just not as nice. It doesn't feel as good, you know? And that's a personal preference. Find where the angles work for you. Don't force yourself to draw straight on just because you think you should, right? So Hotsun has very large round eyes. So it's kind of at the top, he has this one curve that does not touch the midline. It's up high, but it comes down to the right at the midline, okay? At that midline, it sort of cuts straight across down, not all the way to the bottom here, about halfway. And then I thicken it up, so it's thin near the middle of the face, comes thick down to the corner, and then again thick from the corner down to the end where it thins out again. Okay, so the thickest part is this lash line right here in the corner there. Then you sort of follow this curve. He has another little line here, a low lash line. That one's pretty skinny, so you don't want to make it too thick like I just did. And then I add another line. His hair is kind of making it difficult to see, so I'll show you this way. So then I add another line here that follows the circle. So this line comes past the circle, and this line comes down to the circle. Okay, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. This is a little thick for me here, but that's the eye shape. Okay, now the question a lot of artists always have is how you draw the other eye. Now there's many methods to do that, and one of them is to not do what I just did. One of them is to do each part together, right? So that's draw this part and then draw it on the other side, and then draw the next part and draw it on the other side. That is how I was using not the right color. I used gray there. You know, so they would draw the top lash line, and then they would draw the top line over here, and then they would draw the bottom one, and the bottom one, and then whatever. That is a way to do it. You can certainly do that. I don't find that necessarily helps me in any way. I just kind of look at, you know, I reference the other one, right? So if this is where the line comes down, that's where the line comes down. And you kind of come over, and you just sort of feel it out. Come over. And you do it, and you do the same thing I just said before. And you go, oh no, this one's bigger. Okay, so we have to just erase and go back, and such is life, you know? Sorry, it happens. So you kind of go in.
It's part
this
of
one
the
has
experience.
to come in. And you know what? I say it doesn't really ever have to be perfect, because, you know, people aren't perfect. So, you know, I don't really like this eye. I would do it again. And the other
There's
thing I
honestly
recommend...
a lot less symmetry in the world than you would expect.
Exactly. And the other thing that I highly recommend doing at a certain point is get something you generally like, and then, like I said, use the hack where you lighten the opacity. You know, that would lighten this even further. And then, you know, go over it again, right? So I would use a slightly thinner pencil, and I would go over it again to try and even them out. You know, you kind of block in the shape with those original ones, and then you sort of get it going. Yep, some people do have wonky eyes too. It's a wild world out there.
That's very true.
But, you know, the only way to get as close to perfection as possible is to keep trying, keep on trying. And, you know, use the eraser. The eraser's your friend. You can carve out spaces, all that sort of stuff. What's happening
Yes,
there?
don't be scared of using the eraser.
Don't be scared of using the eraser.
It is your friend.
Everything like that. Well, yes, copy and pasting is definitely a tool that is used when you have digital art, and I won't deny that I do use it. You know, there's no question there. I'm actually going to redraw this once more because it's too low, and I can see that. And you just kind of got to keep doing it, keep trying it. Yeah, copy paste is very useful tool. I make a point. And this is a personal preference of mine. I make a point to not copy paste in the sketch. And why do I do that? Specifically, so that I don't lose the ability to draw the other eye outside of doing it. Oh, look, see, that's nice. Now they're kind of even. Just took 3 tries. Not a bad thing. Now they aren't perfectly the same. And I would see, you know, erase this. They're not perfectly the same. But they're pretty dang close, and I'm happy with them. Yeah, the reason I definitely try to do in the sketch is because I don't want to lose that ability. So yeah, so it's just a lot of erasing and doing it. That's what the kneaded erasers are for as well. Let's try it out. All right, there we go. So let me bring his hair back. See, and the hair helps a lot, doesn't it? So then I do one final thing, actually 2 final things with the eyes. He has this little lid line here, which is, again, I'll remove the hair for a second, a line that follows his lash line up to about here, and then it comes down there like that, and you sort of mirror it on the other side. And then he has eyebrows. His eyebrows are on the smaller side, and they're rounded, and they don't really have an arch to them. They're just kind of straight. They bend, but there's not, you know, eyebrows usually have this sort of like bend like that. His eyebrows just sort of curve. There's not really this like distinct bend in them there. And he has rounded fronts of the eyebrows versus like triangular or flat. You can bring him over. He usually has a very panicked and concerned expression on his face. So usually I would draw the eyebrows. Whoops. My eraser's too big.
They're usually in that kind of, what would you call it, downward position?
They're usually, they're curved upward. So usually I curve them up like this and then out. So they're higher in the center, and the curve is concave, I think is what that is. Not convex, concave. Enthuse will correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And just sort of mirror. Sometimes you can add the little like worry lines here. Now, this is a style preference. I do draw the eyebrows on top of the hair. However, I don't color the eyebrows on top of the hair. What do I mean by that? I mean, Hotson's eyebrows are the same color as his undercut, which is not the same color as his overcut. So that means this eyebrow that is not seen will be the same color as his overcut, not his undercut. Only the part of the eyebrows that exposed will be the quote-unquote correct color. However, personally, as a aesthetic, I like the eyebrows over the hair because a lot of my characters have bangs, and without, you know, not having any eyebrows, I prefer to have the eyebrows. Hotson has relatively big irises, okay? They usually just touch at one point of the top of the lash line, not at the bottom. Okay, and they're big. His nose is not at this middle line, it's lower, so about halfway. And it's just a line on the left side of the face. I almost never draw it on the right. I never draw it opposite. I always draw it like this. That's just how I do it. Okay. For mouths, I start in the middle, and I start at a convex curve, and then I bring it concave, and I give a little bloop. It's thicker at the ends, so it gives, you know, kind of leaning towards cat mouth. There's no denying that. But there he is. They're all cute that way. And then I would just kind of, you know, outline those lighter parts that I need to do of the sketch. For when I just do sketchy eyes and stuff, I usually do this sort of comes across and here. And then I just kind of fake shade that in like that. Because it kind of mimics how I color eyes. And then what I would do is I would erase little points for the shine. And there he is. That's Hotson. There you go. We did Hotson. We did one in an hour.
Look at him.
We're not going to get through all of them tonight, guys. I'm very sorry.
Hey, that's
Where
okay.
should you put the Outcast fan art characters? Put them in... Where should we put them?
I wonder if we should create a thread for it in the Discord.
We want to create a thread, or we want to just let them be in the comic blank page.
Oh, blank
Put
page.
them
Is good
up. No,
too.
put them in comments section, because I think that's the place that might have spoilers and stuff. So I think do that. All right, I'll at you there, Pastry Puff. There it is. Do we want a thread for it? We want a thread for it?
Is that a question at me or at chat?
At anybody?
Whoever will answer.
I think just leave it. It's not like that chat's popping
Yeah.
or anything. It's good. Just post it in that channel. That's the good one. All right, but there's Hotson. Beautiful. And again, this is my style, right? You know, do it however you want. This is how I draw Hotson. I would also usually, very, very last thing, I would do a little cross-hatching here for his undercut, just because it is a rather dark color compared to the rest of him. So it just adds a little je ne sais quoi, you know? You can color in that part of the eyebrow too. There he is. All done. All beautiful. The beautiful boy.
Look at him.
All right.
All right. Who next?
Moving on to, of course, my favorite, Milano. Don't tell the others. But he's my favorite. I love him. He's great.
Ori, you're playing favorites with our boys.
Yes, always. There's no question. I love Milano. He's my favorite. I love them all, but he's my favorite. It's just something about him, you know? I made him perfect. All right.
They are very good. I know our Spanish audience agrees.
Exactly. So, Milano, we again start with a circle. Again, as Dylan likes to call it, a hairy circle. Because you don't need to be able to draw a circle in one go. I can't really, you know?
Most
kind of.
people can't. In all
Not good
honesty.
enough, right? You know, these are decent, but why bother? Why, you know, why make it hard on yourself, especially when you don't have undo? Just make a hairy circle, it's fine. Your head's not a perfect circle anyway. You draw the line down the middle. Now, Milano probably has the second longest chin, but his is not pointy at all. He has much more chiseled, sculpted jawline. So you bring a straight line. Why is it not drawing? Thank you. A straight line down. And then you kind of cut in. Okay, so this is a line and a line. And then it's flat across the bottom. And then you sort of mirror that on the other side. I think I usually draw it like this. So I draw down the sides first. And then meet in the middle. Like that. And then I have to sit here and think of why does it look kind of wonky and fix it. That is life. It's because they're not even. There we go. You're not making him... We're not making him the crimson chin. But he does certainly have a jawline. And you want the cheekbones to be roughly... Well, I guess they're not really cheekbones. I don't know what I would call that. But you want them to be roughly at the same level. There you go. That's pretty even. Milano also has ears. Roughly. You're really not going to see them, but I do sometimes draw them in. Okay. His neck, again, you just kind of eyeball it. It is not in line with this bone, though. It is after that. Okay? Very, very important. He's usually a bit thicker than Hotsun. Hotsun's a skinny twig, so, you know, such is life. Okay, he's also broader than Hotsun, so he's gonna kind of come out a bit more. He's not the broadest, but he is probably second broadest. Aster takes broadest. Aster takes broadest. So I'm just kind of breezing through this anatomy part. If you guys have specific questions that I need help with, you can ask.
Yes, about art, writing, the comic.
Okay, with
life.
Milano, it's important I draw shoulder circles for where his, like, where the humerus is, where your shoulder joint is. And then you sort of bring it down, kind of split it like this. Because you need to separate his shoulder from his chest because of his outfit and his scales. Excuse me. All right, use your kneaded eraser. Hello, Oscar.
Hey, Oscar.
Use your kneaded eraser. Lighten that puppy up, and we go on. All right. Milano's hair starts roughly in the same place Hotsun's does, right there, top hour right of his head. He gets a swoop up. He gets another swoop up. I know it's the same. However, now it changes. When it comes down, it doesn't just come down. No, not a headache, Oscar. It doesn't just come down.
No.
It then curves back up and out. And then it just one swoops in. Okay? So, Hotsun's goes down. Milano's comes up. Now I'm going to redo that because I didn't do it right. Didn't do it well. Okay, there it is. It swoops up and out. His middle piece curves the same way Hotsun's does. Okay, so one curve, then an S. He has that same little piece of hair over here covering his one ear. Now over here is where it gets different. It does not connect back up there. It instead has a another curve opposite of that one, and then curves back in. And you have to bring it out more because it's supposed to kind of mirror this piece, right? These two pieces are kind of mirrored, so they should be roughly the same length. Comes up. This comes up, again, doesn't connect. We're making a new line now. Start back at his hair bit. It comes down past this line. It flips out again. And then it comes down like this. Usually I come back over here. This one actually is not connected. So I gotta erase that there. Okay, next down, again, we're mirroring it here. My brain is doing like 8 things at once, trying to figure out how I normally draw Milano and how to tell you how I draw Milano. So I messed up a little bit.
You've never talked about it before.
No, I never talk about it. It's a little straighter than that, so it comes kind of straight. Oh my god, wrong color. Comes kind of straight, and it goes out here once, okay? And then it comes out again and sort of meets at his shoulder. Okay, so you get an out and an out. You're gonna mirror that on the other side. An out and an out. It doesn't have to be perfect symmetrical. The point is his hair is kind of wild. He gets 2 ahoge, hair antenna. They come up to the left. The leftmost one is longer. The second one is shorter. That's just how I do it. I'm gonna clean this up a second. Beautiful. Okay, then he has extra hair, little bits, so not attached to these lines. It comes down and up, and down and up. You just sort of mimic that on the other side, like this, as it comes over his shoulders. And there's Milano's hair. It's very wild. It's very crazy. You can also add more in here if you want. He's just a wild man. Doesn't really matter. You can add more here. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's whatever I'm feeling, whatever you're feeling. Okay, that's his hair. Next. Milano smells like swamp. Yeah, I don't. It's one of those things where when you talk about period dramas,
would allow that.
You don't think about how anybody bathes or not. You just, you just move on.
You just roll with it.
No, they definitely have some sort of like
of the group,
spring.
I'm sure he would not allow it.
Yeah. They definitely have some sort of spring, and they definitely have soap. Ferrex is smart enough to make a little watering hole for bathing, and Sinet and Aster would definitely make soap.
You have Sinet as the doctor who would tell them, no, please clean up.
He doesn't smell like swamp, but he definitely doesn't brush his hair all the time,
Yeah,
all
he's got that wild mane.
So, clothes. I usually trace, feel down from the neckline. So right where the neck meets the chin, I kind of come down and past the hair. I make a line straight down. I mimic that on the other side. That is the most of his vest. Yeah, exactly, Nixioto. Yeah, you just kind of brush over that. And, we're in kind of like a weird fantasy world with our comics, so you just kind of accept and move on.
Suspension of disbelief, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. When you're not thinking about it, you're not thinking about it. All right.
It really is up to the reader or the viewer how much that suspension of disbelief bothers them.
Exactly.
So, suspension of disbelief is both objective but also subjective.
So these lines I did that sort of denote the curve of his chest and everything, those are the ends where the vest ends, okay? Right about there. So when you do the collar of his thing, they usually come past. And then again, it mimics sort of Hotzen's, right? So it would come past further, but because it is a bust, it only goes about that far. You mimic it on the other side. I kind of trace over that way. Bring it in. Again, it sticks past the sleeve section. So then you would erase that overlap lines. You'd erase all these overlap lines. Stoopity wap. Beautiful. Then, now, what does Milano have? Milano has shoulder scales. So he also has holes in his shirt for them. So I usually take from about there, and I make this little curve. Okay, so this is too high, and make that little curve, okay? That is the section where you will see his shoulder scales. The rest is his shirt sleeve.
Shoulder hair.
He doesn't have shoulder hair. He has shoulder scales. Now, they're all kind of related evolutionarily, but we're not going into that. He has 4 shoulder scales that stick out. Okay, sometimes they're covered under the hair, but there is always 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they stick out like that. Now, the scale pattern. I do have a method to the madness. Sushi Boy, Kokohimo, Diva Catboy. Then you have Hotzen and Aster, Oscar. You're missing. Okay, the method to the madness is where this...
I'm impressed he came up with nicknames for them so quickly.
Scale meets the shirt line. You make a scale like this. And then you separate it and you connect it there. Then you make one in the middle of them. And you make one like this, halfway through. And then you connect. And then you make halfway through. And then you connect. And you make halfway through and you connect. And that's how you do it. I'll do it again. You sort of... So this one I actually do differently. You start here, because there's more room. And you connect it down. You separate in the middle. And you leave it open. And then you separate and you connect. And then you separate. Separate and you connect. Separate. There you go. Beautiful. That's his scales. You erase the overlaps like that in the hair. Because part of the hair is on top of the scales and part of the hair is behind the scales. Okay, you see that? He's got some come in front, he's got some come behind. Hotson doesn't like green Fruit Loops. Okay. I don't know if he's ever had Fruit Loops.
Where did that headcanon come
I don't know,
from?
but, you know, that's new headcanon. All right. Now, he has a shirt. This is just his vest. He has a shirt. It is a V-neck shirt, so kind of just, you know, eyeball V-neck in the middle. It has sort of this collar overlapping bit. It has this little zigzag where it goes one across and then crosses in front and little things come down. I do the little shirt wrinkles I always do. Boop, boop. Now, because of his shirt being lower cut, you will see his collarbone. So how do you do that? You take those little lines you draw from the neck, and right about below where they meet, you make a little U, and you come across up towards the shoulder like that. You erase the parts you don't see. And there you go. Now he has Smexy collarbone. Alrighty. Again, you can give him an Adam's apple if you want. I just do a little bloop if I do. Moving on to his face. Yep, you have a question?
Oh, no. No, I was just shifting.
Ah. Okay.
Stretching.
Do his
and
eyes.
shifting.
His are a little higher. Okay, his are higher up than Hotson's. Makes him look older. Which he is, but not that much older. But his are higher up, so I kind of do it like this. Those are a little too high for me, actually. Let's try that again.
They're so cute!
What the little thing Oscar did?
So Enthuse put a little Hotson in the
Oh!
comment section.
Oh, I have to check.
And Pastry Puff put one of theirs in the comment section.
Okay, I have to check. People are getting their stuff in. Oh, it's Aster. Oh, so great. Oh, so
Beautiful.
cute. Oh, he has a little basket. Oh, adorable. Beautiful. And we have a little Hotson. Oh, he's got real cat mouth there, the cutie. Beautiful. Yes, exactly, Oscar. That's what we're doing today. We're doing the fan arts. Because if you draw... This is a thing I'm putting out solely to stream. Okay, you don't have to keep it a secret, but this is solely to stream. If you put in effort to draw an Outcast character, I will draw a bust art thing for a character you would like. I will DM you after you do the thing, and I will do it. However, this is limited in the sense of that, like, if you do all 5 characters today, I'm sorry, I can't give you all 5. Can't give you just 5 drawings.
You might want to
I
put
don't
those
have time for
tentacles
that.
away, Oscar.
Yeah. You can
Only
use your
one
tentacles,
character.
but yeah. This stream doesn't count, you don't think? All right. Well, I don't know. Pastry Puff didn't follow along, so I'll accept Pastry Puffs. But if you don't want it to count, Enthuse, you can decide. If you want to not count it, that's your thing. Your Hotson's very adorable, though. The wings are always fun to shape, Pastry Puff. That's the beauty of it. But oh my god, I love Aster. He's so cute with his basket. All right.
So damn adorable.
So, Milano's eyes go down. Milano has bedroom eyes, as Dylan likes to say, but they're much thinner than Hotson's eyes.
Milano is basically whoops sexy.
You'll sacrifice Enthuse. Take 2. No. All right.
Oh, poor Enthuse.
So Milano's eyes are lower towards the middle of his face and higher towards the outside of his face. So they kind of slant in like this. They have a light curve to them. And then they slant in like this. Again, they're thicker at the corner and then thin out towards the end. You bring that little 1 bit down. Okay, right? And then you just sort of connect without connecting the 2. And you get sort of this slightly upturned rectangle eye. Okay? Sort of repeat that on the other side. Like this. I'm not talking because I'm concentrating. Lululu. Again, if anybody has any questions at any time, feel free to ask.
Yes, please. We love questions.
I love questions. Okay, great. Can you tell I like to draw Milano more than Hotsun? Oh, who knew? It's like she got it right the first time instead of annoying with Hotsun. Ha ha ha
Like right
ha.
out the gate. Holy crow, what talent.
You play Pot of Greed? Oh no, we're playing Magic the Gathering in chat now? This is too much for my brain. You know the people who play chess with like their mind, where they just say like knight to e4 and it's like all in their brain? Nuts. That's what they're doing right now.
Powerful. Too damn powerful.
I said Magic. Are you not playing Magic the Gathering? Hearing Magic after Pot of Greed? Okay, I guess I'm wrong. I don't... Which character was hardest to design? Ooh, which character was hardest to design? Avrit.
I remember Avrit was difficult. I also remember we had to go back to the drawing board for Ferrix, particularly with his outfit.
His outfit was weird.
His outfit was challenging.
Ferrix's outfit was challenging. His overall rest of his design was fairly simple, but his outfit was challenging to make it sort of quote-unquote period, as well as embody the tree climber vibes that I really wanted from him.
We really wanted the woodman handyman vibe.
Yeah, and so it was definitely difficult to make it sort of
to
his original outfit, if I remember correctly, was fairly like sci-fi-y. It was too like body.
It was very skin tight.
Yeah, and that was like they don't really have spandex, or neoprene, so it doesn't really work. What is the period?
Like,
I would call the period fantasy golden age of piracy. Okay, there's not a ton of research that goes into it, but it definitely leans golden age of piracy for everything. But it's definitely
one
not
of those stories that's kind of like
my goal.
The setting is the backdrop to everything that's happening.
My goal is fable time period. And what I mean by that is the sense of that it doesn't really matter what time period is. And so it doesn't really necessarily have to line up with any time period 100%, because it doesn't. Because medicine is very weird, and like amenities is very weird, and like a lot of things that are honestly relatively simple to make didn't exist until relatively late. So it's like a whole weird sort of line.
In order to get a truly timeless story, it has to be able to take place at both any time and no time in history.
My favorite example.
You really have to walk that fine line.
My favorite example is
Willy Wonka is a great example of
Willy
that.
Wonka is a beautiful example. Another good example is Princess Tutu. Princess Tutu specifically takes it's an anime. It's a great anime. You should check it out. But it specifically takes the fable vibes. Definitely not flush toilets. But time period wise, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they understand the concept of germs. And when you put that where that is in perspective, everything gets kind of weird, right? So it's like a whole wild thing. But then you also have like the Romans have plumbing, and like the other, so it's like, it's really one of those things where we don't...
People are more technologically advanced than you would expect.
But sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not, and they're at the same time period, right? And then you go back into the Dark Ages. So to avoid worrying about that, and specifically, we have no desire to have scenes where they're like in bathrooms or like needing to go to the bathroom. Like that's not part of the story, right? I would say I imagine that the ship does just have a hole in the ship and you shit into the sea. Like, come on, such is life, right? Like, we're not on a cruise, but, they're like the whole thing.
Living on an island
never
in the wild.
Going to have, like, a moment where it's like, oh god, excuse me, I need the bathroom. Like, it doesn't matter, so it's not something we, like, really focus on. They didn't have Disney cruises. But back to Princess Tutu, really good anime, really fun anime. You should watch it if you like magical girls at all. It's really good. If you like ballet and classical music, top tier, really, really good. It's like a 90s anime, but it's really, 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 really good.
So good, and it honestly holds up so well, you guys.
Good. And it really doesn't have any of those like problematic, maybe Mr. Cat, but honestly he's not that bad in the end. It doesn't really have a lot of the problematic things sometimes you find in 90 anime.
Though.
No, they play it like it's a joke the whole time.
It is a joke,
so
and
it's not a
never
problem.
taken seriously.
Yeah. So it does, and then he gets his comeuppance with the sheep or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing.
He gets a taste of his own medicine.
The point of it is though, there's no like phones, right? But beyond that, you have no idea what time period it is. You never see a bathroom, you never see a doctor, of any sort. You never do that. You have writing utensils, you see them write with quills, but but their outfits are kind of period, but they also wear like a school uniform that's not like super modern, but they also have like more modern ballet shoes and stuff. So it's this very, you can't pin down the time period. Right.
It really does find that balance.
It's not a historical time period. It's a vibe, right? That's the whole thing. Think about that. When you think about the pretty frilly outfits of pirates in the golden age of piracy, right? I think it's the Victorian era. Again, I'm not great at history and time periods. I'm not thinking about whether or not they have a flush toilet. I'm not thinking about whether or not they have disinfectants or the theory of germs. I'm thinking about the aesthetic of the whole thing, right? I'm thinking about the aesthetic. Are there guns? Yes, they're not modern guns. They're more what pirates had, which are guns. I'm saying in Princess Tutu, you don't see a doctor. Nobody gets like sick to have a doctor like that. It's a whole thing. But you see a blacksmith, right? So but blacksmithing is still a thing today. So it's one of those things you can't nail it down, right? A big issue with trying to pin Outcast in a specific time period means that a lot of what Sinnott does is not as rooted in science as we want his character to be, right? We wanted his character to be pretty academic, right? He's not a foil, but he's a mirror of Hotson in a way, right? You'll see this a lot.
He essentially relates to Hotson. Like, yeah, Hotson finds
a lot of camaraderie.
Basically what he sees as a friend in Sinnott, because they come from a similar background, and he seems the most civilized out of all the
We see that a lot in entry 4. That's the Sinnott entry.
Hangout, yes. Oh, my favorite.
It's a very good. I have not. Would I ever consider an AU?
No,
probably
absolutely not.
Solely for the fact that I have no desire to draw that or go into that in any sort of way. It just has like a personal preference. I wouldn't be upset if that's what someone wanted to do, like,
if
artistically.
Somebody wants to write that as like fan fiction or something like that,
but,
like, that is more than fine, but that will never be canon.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even do an AU because I wouldn't draw it, right? I have no desire to draw that. When I talk about body horror, it is a very specific thing that Mars and I specifically talk about in a very little specific subset that's kind of like...
Oh, no, we have a scene with body horror that we do want to do
very late, but it's
in
very
season 3.
No, but that's 100% enthused. Old medicine is very silly, and very silly medicine existed too really, really recently in history, right? And so that's the biggest thing that to exist needs to... it's really not strong body horror pastry puff if you're concerned.
Oscar.
It's very mild because I'm not a big body horror thing. It's closer to like... It's not Candy Gore, but it's more in that. It's not Castlevania level. It's not even there. It's not Invincible level. We're back to... It's not Vox Machina level.
It's not
We're
even
not
Attack
even
on
in there.
Titan
We're talking
levels
like
of gore.
you would see it in Adventure Time level of body horror. Okay? I think that's a good sort of like...
Maybe Gravity
psychedelic
Falls level of body horror.
Yeah, like in like a psychedelic... Yeah, I think Gravity Falls is a very good one, right? When Bill comes into power in Weirdmageddon, that level of body horror is what we're talking about. Very light. Yeah, Adventure Time does have weird body horror, but it's not graphic. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like that's me, I'm a person, and I could weirdly have my body distorted. You know what I'm saying? Is like a level of disconnect. If you've ever read the webcomic
It's like the
The
body
Heirs
horror is
Game,
fantastical enough
yeah, it's
that
yeah.
you can't see it happening to you.
Exactly. It's definitely surreal because the setting that it's in is surreal. It's definitely not supposed to be like a realistic
I'll give
thing.
you guys a little bit of a secret. The quote-unquote body horror we're planning happens in a dream sequence. That's
exactly,
how we're justifying doing it, because it's not happening in the real world, it's happening in a dream, and you could dream some very crazy things, but that's how your subconscious works through things. That's what we want this character to do once we reach that point. So
which
his
is very
going
late. It's much later.
relate to that. Oh, it's
This is
so
very
much later in the timeline. We're not even close to that.
That is true, Pastry Pup. Me personally, when it comes to like, it's very difficult to describe in my brain how exactly we envision it, but it's definitely not. My point is, it's not like blood and guts, right? No one's like getting their entrails ripped out or something like that. Like, I'm not seeing like.
We're not
like,
talking Chainsaw
innards,
Man.
You know, yeah, it's like a whole.
No,
there's
no
a
Chainsaw
line
Man.
that is a personal line for me that is difficult to describe because you only have so many. What's the word? So many
Options?
labels, right? There's a lot of things that. My biggest example is when I did Art Fight. Gore is a label you can use, and people will say like, "Yeah, I'm okay with gore," or body horror stuff, or it's not, and. There's a lot of gore in there that I was like, I would say I'm a person that I don't really like gore, but a lot of what was labeled as gore is like, no, I'm okay with, like, that I wouldn't have considered gore. Like, that's fine. Like, I wouldn't have considered that a problem. So it's like, it's just like NSFW stuff, right? In the sense of that it's like, I lost my train of thought. In the sense of that it's like, I don't know where the line is, and it's kind of different for everybody else, right? Like, what would they consider spicy that they would put it in the NSFW category, or would not?
And that can also come down
that's
to
kind of the roughness of it.
As well.
Exactly. So it's hard to put a label on it, but it's definitely within the subcategory of body horror. Like the overarching narrative, the story is that it is kind of horrific to the person, but it's a whole thing.
Well,
yes,
it
shout
has
out.
to be horrific to the character, but
which had good Ace Attorney stuff this last week. Jamie knows. More fun stuff next week. Probably bonus stuff because it's old and otherwise I'll never post it. Yes, shout out to the NSFW tier and Kofi and all the tiers. But yes. All right.
Gotta love the tiers.
Yeah. So I think overall I would say Everett was the hardest to design. And the reason is because his outfit had to be very specific on how we wanted to portray him. And honestly, my heart was set on an outfit piece that we didn't add in the end. Very sad because it was kind of goofy, but I liked it. And I really want a character to have it, but they probably never will.
But
no, it's one of those. It's such
was
as life.
Too much.
But out of all of the characters, he had the most iterations. Like, I literally have a sheet that is like Everett in like
had
80 different outfits.
8 to 11 different versions of him.
And the
whereas
hair and
all
the
other
eyes
characters
and the
had
colors.
maybe 2 to 3.
Yeah, at most. Honestly, Hotsun and Milano kind of got cranked out really fast. No, Everett is a character
Hotsun was really fast. We always had a very strong idea for him. Milano
was
a little bit of a challenge to figure out because you were trying to figure out the scale placement.
Yeah, he had more scale placements, more scales at one point.
He used to have exposed hips with scales.
Yeah, his pants were like
there was a lot
slitted more. It was interesting. I don't want main comic. I want references. Everett. Nope.
So Everett is a human.
Yep, you haven't met him. Well, yeah.
Well, you've seen glimpses of him.
This is Everett,
but he hasn't been formally introduced.
He's the last of
if you
the
know him,
super
you might have
main
seen him
characters.
in AUs. Ulrus is the
interesting
walrus.
Pastry Puff. Yeah, Ulrus is the walrus. Yeah, so this is Everett. he had the most design things, and I will show you that with this. This is the 8 billion different combinations of Everett design.
Oh my god, there were
before nailing
so
on
many.
what we got in the end, which is what we have. So yeah, so he's the biggest one. Hudson had a few iterations specifically with the outfit on deciding it. So yeah, mostly it came with the outfit. Who having difficulties or not. Out of
His
everything.
outfit definitely became more simplified over time. Like, he started out with a lot of details on his jacket.
Both of them did. That's a different thing. But it was like, deciding on ruffles, where the ruffles are, how the pants work. I have a lot of diagrams of his pants. A lot of diagrams of his pants. And
the pants
shoes
were very important.
And all these sort of things. There's lots of designs of shoes and pants and jacket.
The shoes took forever to figure out.
I have a really funny thing. I had a really good time. I have a page in my sketchbook that will never see the light of day, but it is specifically Hudson getting dressed. And so the order of him getting dressed and how it all works out, because he has a lot of layers compared to the other rest of the crew, right? He has a lot of layers. And so it was like a whole thing. Making sure it was functional for what we needed it to do, visually and the whole thing.
How does Hudson maintain his undercut on
I
the
won't
island?
elaborate because I won't elaborate. That's all I'll say about that. I won't elaborate.
Ori has spoken. I might have said something, but Ori has spoken.
I won't elaborate. Yep. When the time comes, if you remember this question and still feel the need to ask it again, I will elaborate, but the time is not now. And it's not because there's not an answer. That's all I'll say. It's not because there's not an answer.
There is an answer, and we have an answer.
But I will also mention there are a lot of knives on the island, so But.
Oh, there are tons of knives, and Sinet, Ferrex, Aster, they've been able to maintain their appearance as well.
Yeah,
so
their haircut too.
That's the thing with them. Like, yes, they're pirates, but they are still refined to a degree. Like, they still keep up their own appearance. They still maintain themselves. They haven't, like...
They're not fully feral.
They're not feral. They're not feral.
We might have ferrets, but they're not feral. Yeah.
Oh no, there's very much an answer.
It's not a bad answer. It's not a bad answer. But
Keep
it is
an eye out for season 2.
It's a spoilery answer. Is
we
the
got
only
plans.
Thing. But yeah, lots of fun stuff going. Honestly, the lore is like happening now. Entry 2 is like setup, and entry 3 starts like this is the story.
Entry 3 starts the full story, because that's when we get to know everyone, we get to learn what makes them tick, and we also see Hudson's interpretation of everything around him.
There are 6 entries in season 1, in journal 1. They vary greatly in length. Tremendously.
Yeah.
Because
the way we do the entries is dependent on how long a day in universe is. Because Hudson is writing these entries at the end of his day.
Exactly.
So typically an entry will begin with a page out of his journal.
So
it's like he's reflecting back on it.
The prologue doesn't have an entry, because he got the journal in the prologue. The entry 1 is literally one upload, because that was one day. His one day was surviving the island, waking up to Milano, etc. Entry 2 is 13 pages, because a lot happened. It's
a lot of it was happening during the day.
From
it
dawn
was
to
going
dusk,
to the
later than dusk.
treehouse, charting the course, finding the evidence an intruder is on the island, starting to meet the crew, explaining what he found, explaining the map. Like, it was a lot.
Entry 3 is the second shortest entry after entry 1. And then they slowly increase in length again. And I think at this point we say entry 6... Math? Yeah. Entry 6 will be longer than entry 2.
I wouldn't
think,
say season 1 is 6 days
Yeah.
because if I remember correctly, there is a time jump forward after the hangout.
There is a time. Yeah. There is
There's a
between
brief
entry
time
5
jump
and entry
forward.
6. There is sort of a zoom because nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So, but that's
that
the
was
whole thing.
definitely out of
He
necessity.
doesn't have an entry because he's not writing anything down. Nothing's really happening, right? There's no new information for him. So it's not necessarily a 1-to-1 on the days, but it is sort of how that goes.
I think we even call it out.
I think
like,
we do.
oh, they've kept me so busy, I haven't even been able to journal properly. Something
there's
to that extent.
And then there's visual stuff and everything, like, so it's not 6 days. And I might be wrong at 6. I think it is 6, but I might be incorrect depending on how something goes. This is literally from memory. I'm not looking at our notes right now.
No, I don't have.
I think it is 6. But yeah, it's much more than 6 days. But traveling by boat on the sea is very long and not always interesting.
It is
so that is
arduous process.
That is taken into account with everything. I don't need a journal entry from Houghton for a month on a boat, right? Not even a week on a boat.
Unless something is happening on said
unless
boat.
something
Like
is
if he's
happening
learning a new skill or if he's having a meaningful chat with somebody.
But if he's just kind of keeping to himself, holed up because he's, very, very worried and everything, he's not going to be having a lot of stuff. But, I'm definitely afraid in the sense of that we're fast approaching content at a rate that is just wild in my brain. Because, for those who don't know, Mars and I worked on this comic for about 2 years before release. And about 6 months before release, I spent essentially my entire day, every day, drawing the comic up to lines so that we had line art of as many entries as possible, of as many pages as possible for Mars to then color. And Mars was coloring as much as she could to get this sort of backlog that ended up with having a 7 upload backlog. So we had 10 finished on launch, but we had to post 3 at once. Bless you. Because that's how at least Webtoon prefers you to do it, because after the 3rd reading of a comic, it prompts you to subscribe. So that's why they say to do that way. And then, so we had a backlog of 7, and then essentially every 2 weeks, I try to finish an entry from what Mars has colored. I've gone away. Mars has school, so she's not managing necessarily always to have one other. Mars was doing all the coloring at a certain point. Now we're like alternating because I had this period of time where it's like, I'm doing 1 a week because we went from 7 backlog to 5 backlog, and that was horrifying. And so now we're back up at 7, and I'm very proud of that. But I don't want to lose that because, again, I go away a couple times a year for a week. So it's like, I can't do anything there. That's what the backlog's for. And, what if I get sick or something, who knows? Life happens.
And it's very helpful to have.
So having the backlog is a godsend. But that does mean that we are approaching at a rate that I was not prepared for, because I just realized the other day that I'm almost done with entry 5 for entries. And I only have 2 pages in entry 6 done. Not even 1.5.
Oh, man.
of lines. So it's like, I started sketching. I started the first sketch of 5-3, but it's here, it's now, and I'm a little freaked out, not gonna lie.
Today to now.
Yeah.
Damn, that's so wild to think about, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm a little skewed because you are working on one.
Scripting.
I'm drawing Milano without teaching how. I'll back it up.
Okay.
We were talking, and I wanted to finish it.
How about you finish Milano, and then we'll go back to this once he's done.
Okay. We'll back it up. I'm sorry, Enthuse. I'm sorry. Okay, I can't back up further than that. Essentially, his eyes are circles, but they're usually only about half Okay, you only see about half of them. It gives
His
him
are
this...
definitely more angular than Hotzen's.
Yeah, 100%. It gives him this sort of half-lidded look, and that causes him to be accidentally sexy all the time. You draw the lid line kind of right over, similar to Hotzen's. Same sort of idea. Now, his eyebrows are angular. They do have that bend. They're thicker in the middle. Okay. And he always has they're sort of like up and down, like this. So they're not angry, but they're definitely like confident, I guess is the word. You know, he's looking at you, right? He's not shy about it. He is looking at you. Again, you just sort of do the same thing. So they do have that specific bend, unlike Hotzen's, who were just round. Okay, so this is more Milano's, this is more Hotzen's. The curve is up like that, so they bend that way instead of that way. That's important. Milano has the nose that the vast majority of characters I draw have, because I like it, I prefer it. Which is, sort of, you just draw the nostrils. So you draw, it's sort of like a comma, right? So if you draw a comma, and it has a little bit on top, and then it's skinny at the end, it's essentially that on its side. So you pick one side, and it's a little comma. It's the other side, and it's a little comma. And you just sort of have to gauge, you know, I would say this nose is a little too big for Milano. So I would make it a little slower. It is, again, below his bottom part of the circle of his head. You know, we don't want to make them too big or too far apart. But there you go. That's good. Right about there. I always give Milano a smirk, and I'm right-handed, so I always smirk to the right. My father makes fun of me for this all the time. Again, it's like a down curve, so it looks like he's frowning. But you curve up at the end. Okay, you curve up at the end. I give a little line down like this.
Look at that.
I'll probably actually... I would say... You gotta curve up more. So, you curve up more on the one side. There it is. Than the other. You kind of follow the look of the chin, so it's the same sort of angle. It's going to be, for me, smaller on the left, bigger on the right. So you kind of got that smirk, right? See how it's kind of smirking? And curl it up. How I draw the teeth. You draw this sort of triangle into the center. So you kind of carve out this little black triangle. Okay? Like that. You then continue that down. Now, Milano has pointy teeth, so you make just a couple, right? Just a couple zigzag. You don't zigzag all the way across. It just, you know, the style. When you draw individual teeth, that's what makes art creepy. Okay, that's like a scientific fact. Okay?
Never draw individual teeth.
Even in realism, you don't fully separate all the teeth. You do have them sort of blend together.
Even in realism, you have that kind of faded line that shows like an impression of teeth, but never a full...
It's never a full black, dark line. Even though if I would look at my teeth in the mirror, like my teeth are kind of separated, but still, it's just like the way the brain works. You can, if you want, do the same on the other side. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It doesn't really matter. Here I drew his chin a little too skinny, so I'm gonna beef him out a little bit there.
That's why we have those lines. They're just a guideline.
They're just a guideline. They don't need to be
followed to a T.
I'm trying to drink water and I don't have a hand. Here we are.
That's just impressive. Are you absorbing it?
No, I was trying to drink water so I didn't have a hand.
Ah, I see, I see.
Yeah, so you needed a little more meat on his face there. You can see that. He's a little wider than that. There he is.
Just plump
Drew his mouth kind of small, but, you know, doesn't really matter. This is not fully there. I think that is it. Yeah, that looks about it.
Yeah, you got all the details in there.
You can, again, do the eye thing, where you kind of come across, make a circle, shade it in, come across, make a circle, shade it in, take your eraser, erase little dots for the eye shine, And then again, since Milano's hair is the darkest part of him, and again, color theory is important, I'll do the cross-hatching across his hair. Because it frames his face better, and without color, it makes him look like he's supposed to look. There's definitely a color theory thing here. I'm gonna tell you a lot in the sense of that when I design characters, not all characters get a lot of effort. And what I mean by that is there's usually a phase where they start at where my brain just has like, this is how they're gonna look. I will say, especially for the colors, I'm looking at the animals that they are a lot. That's probably like why I like to design collars so much, is because you do get that fun reference of looking at the animals. So when I was designing Ferrex, I'm looking at a fossa. When I'm designing Milano, I'm looking at a caiman. When I'm specifically the black caiman. When I'm designing Aster, I'm looking at the black-browed albatross. And when I was designing Sinnet, I'm looking at the bamboo shark. But there is Milano, such a pretty boy. There he is. Any questions about that? You can also shade in his scales. They're the second darkest part of his design as well. I don't usually. That's a preference. I like to just add one part of the cross-hatching to me, otherwise it gets kind of busy. But there he is, Milano.
Oh.
See, I told you guys could still get us on tangents. I knew it was going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what stream is. Two main boys. Yeah, we might have to, since it is already 12:11, we'll continue talking, but I think we'll leave the rest of the Outcast crew. We'll do another one.
Ori, I am impressed at your abilities, but I don't think you could draw Ferrex in
Ferrex is probably the hardest to draw. Yeah, we will do a sequel in Theus.
Oh, absolutely. We have to. We gotta do the side boys.
You gotta. I didn't want
should we do Everett next because he's one of the main characters, and then go into the side guys?
I don't think I'll do Everett until until he's like fully in it.
Okay.
He's literally he has like 3 panels, and most of them are not his full phase. Yeah, they're not.
Don't say side boys.
They're not side boys. No, okay, Ferrex is not the main character, but they all, like, it's one of those things where mathematically, technically, they are side characters, but they do play a large role. You know, think about it like My Hero Academia.
This is one of those cases where I'm going to refer to Demon Slayer.
Yeah,
where
Demon Slayer is another one.
If we want to, every character has main character energy.
Yeah. You learn about them, their backstory.
In that way. Everyone's interesting enough that they could be the hero of their own story.
It's difficult to say necessarily side character. The only one that is guaranteed, Hotsun is the main character, right? And because of Milano's personality. Yeah, exactly, Pastry Puff. Exactly. And because of Milano and who he is definitely the second by far, you know, very significantly. But we put a lot of effort into Ferrex and Sinnet and Aster because their existence, including Milano, is Hotsun's journey, right? That is the story, if you really think about it. So to have them be nothing, you know, to be classic side character syndrome, I say with like quotation marks, and be kind of bland and flat, would be a disservice to how the story works, how the story writing works. The story is specifically Hotsun's journey of interacting with these new people and how he grows as a character, how they grow as a character, you know, all of this sort of stuff. And so we say side character in like a mathematical sense of like, you can't have all main characters. We are following Hotsun. You know, we see it mostly, and I do say mostly, from his perspective, and we mostly follow him. But there are plans where we see it from different, you know, characters, where we have scenes and entries that, well, not full entries, scenes and pages that we don't really see Hotsun, you know, and those, I don't know how we're gonna label those yet. We'll see how that works out.
We'll we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're good at that.
There's definitely a little play there and everything like that. But yeah, Gumshoe plays a large role and he's a side character. So does Maya, I would say, and Mia. They're side characters.
Definitely.
Maya especially, she has a lot going on there. So yeah, side character is definitely not a bad thing. Unfortunately, media has done them dirty a lot of the time. But I gotta tell you, we have the same exact amount of backstory information and lore information on Ferrix and Sinnet and Aster as we do on Hotsun and Milano. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like they will all have...
Our goal was to make them as fleshed out as possible because we wanted to avoid the... We have so many interesting side characters. Let's talk about none of them.
And we
syndrome.
love them. I love them, you know?
Yeah, that's the nice thing.
That's
Because, like, you
true.
create these backstories for these characters that you care about. And it's almost like a... It's almost like a chicken and the egg scenario, because, like, well, which came first? Did I create a backstory because I love these characters, or do I love these characters because of their backstory? Which came first? It's really hard to tell sometimes.
But
it's very worth it.
Yeah, and they'll all have, you know, family designs, you know, for their family, you know, like... They are definitely not shunted in any way in our story.
Nobody is an island in this story.
Go. Exactly.
They all need each other. They all need each other's support.
And it's because that's the kind of story Mars and I like to and thus wanted to create.
Well, we're definitely suckers for the power of friendship. That's for damn sure.
Exactly.
We do love
Suckers
that
for the
kind of storytelling.
But it's definitely like this, and that's a reason why the setting doesn't matter so much. I just like pirates and boats and water, so... Yes, except for the literal island, you know. But it's an island full of friends! A whole crew! Living in a fun treehouse together.
Exactly.
But, yeah, so that's why the setting is more of a vehicle for exactly how the interactions go.
The setting is a vehicle to tell the story, because this environment made these characters a certain way and respond to their environment a certain way. Really, I will say it's like it definitely parallels our world for sure. But I do like to think it is timeless, that it could take place at any point in time.
What I like about it is that it's vague enough in a way that is anybody can use it in that sense, right? Anybody, so there's so much more relatability to it. It is timeless. Like, you know, fairy tales with morals. You're always seeing those morals, right? No matter what time period you're at and everything. And so the moral of our story, quote unquote, the message that we have created with it is timeless, but exactly what it represents may change, you know, from person to person, from moment to moment. And I know I certainly associate it with certain things, but who knows if that'll be that way in 20 years. Good night, enthuse. We're probably wrapping up in about 10 minutes anyway, but glad you could make it.
It'll happen
so happy for your Hotsun. Do you want me to count it or not, enthuse? Because, you know, definitely put effort into it. So you gotta let me know.
It's totally your choice.
Pastry Puff, I am gonna count yours unless you want to say otherwise. But I like drawing characters, so I want to draw characters. You'll do a better one? I was pretty good, enthuse. But I won't count it then. Okay?
Alright, that's your choice.
Let me know if you change your mind. But yeah, anybody on stream, again, the whole thing with this fun little art thing was inspired by essentially a opportunity, I'll say, that I put out to everybody. It is a stream only thing in the sense of that I won't announce it in the Discord, but you don't have to hide it, you know. It's not a secret, it's just I'm not making a Discord announcement. And that is that if you draw an Outcast character, again, it is our comic, there are all the wiki in our Discord has all of the references, that's the word I want, all the references for everything. And that, if you draw one and you put effort into it, again, you don't have to consider yourself a good artist. You don't have to have a drawing tablet. You don't have to be someone that, wants to post your stuff on Instagram or anything like that. But if you take the time and you put in the effort to draw one of our characters, I want to do an art trade essentially, and I will draw a character for you.
Ori really enjoyed Art Fight, you guys.
I really did.
Like,
and I
has
really
changed her.
Wow. It sounds bad.
It's not bad.
I like art trades. I really do. I love drawing characters. I will say, what I'm proposing is I draw them very quote-unquote simply, in the sense of that they're just a bust. And, I'm going to show an example. If I could just save this. How to draw. There we go. I will show some examples. Because they're very quote-unquote simple in the sense of, yeah, they're just busts. I'm not drawing crazy poses. It's not a commission where I'm not getting your feedback or anything. You give me reference, or you describe the character to the best of your ability, and I ask questions, but then you just get what you get. You get what you get. That's it. These are some examples of the sort of thing you would get. Just, fun little, nicely shaded, but busts. All that sort of thing. And here the backgrounds depend on, they have the dice if they're a TTRPG character. Other ones have, like, that was a monster prom one. That one was a vampire who had the moon. This guy is a welcome home OC, so he just sort of had his vibe, I guess. And everything like that. Oops. So those are that's what you would get. Like that. One of these busts. And yeah, that is my trade deal. You may or may not choose to accept it.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I just like drawing characters.
Not gonna lie.
I had so much fun with Art Fight. It was really fun. I like drawing characters, and I love receiving fan art. Whoops, hitting it. I love receiving fan art. I love every piece of fan art we have gotten, whether it's been through Art Fight or, I won a contest and I'm like, yes, draw the OC. Oh, okay. Really, really cool experience, right? Mm-hmm. So Kaz did this thing in his Discord where he had apparently in another Discord saw this little thing that was like, post your, like, the eyes, character eyes.
Oh, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I did that today. I posted it in our Discord as well, right? It was post character eyes. Okay, so this was Kaz's, and it was supposed to be like an art meme, so like just cut, do a little copy paste of character eyes and post it. So I of course had to join in. These are ours. We of course have the Outcast boys up here, of course our avatars over here, and then these are all the most recent bestest quote unquote TTRPG characters that I've done. Everything beyond this is beyond like a year old, so I'm like, not really at the quality I want it to be. And then other people started doing theirs too, and this person actually drew, as you can see in the bottom left corner here, Hudson for Art Fight, and his eyes were in it, and that was the coolest thing. I gotta say, the fact that the art that someone drew of our OCs was so good, they liked it so much that they showed it off in the eyes. Now that's one. Now it gets better. These are beautiful. This is another artist, but this is not what I wanted to show, but these are very great as well. Was this one, and I don't know if Mars can notice, but I knew right away. This one right here, this singular green eye, is Milano's eye, because they drew Milano before last December, actually. And it was so, again, they liked it so much that they put it in with their eyes, show off thing. And it was just one of those things where it was like, I was already so blessed by the fact that they drew the characters in the first place, right? But then it was like a second level tier of like, but they liked the art of our characters so much that they were showing it off, you know,
That's
essentially in this
amazing.
one, you know, almost a year later, 10 months later, right? It is really, really nuts. I save all the fan art. I'm going in the Discord and I'm saving those fan arts. You know, you can't escape. I mean, you wouldn't want to escape.
You will be immortalized forever.
But yeah, if you haven't seen, I gotta show it off again. This is the Hotsun eyes from before. Such a lovely boy. And then this is the mulatto eye. Ugh. I can pick you all out in a crowd, guys. I know exactly the boys. They're seared into my brain. Lovely. It's great. Top tier. Top tier.
That is absolutely amazing.
I know, it was so cool. It was so cool. Do you guys
my mind.
have, I know, right? If you guys have any other questions?
Yes.
Any closing remarks? Anything like that as we finish up here, I guess is the word.
Well, closing remarks, you know, I'm always happy to talk about our series. I'm so glad we have a passionate community that cares about these characters as much as we do and wants to hear about them. Like, that to me will never not be amazing.
So cool. So cool, you
so
guys.
Damn cool. So
the fact that literally there's anybody here that has, you know, that likes us and our comic so much to even ask any questions about it is really, really wild. And
that alone
means
is
so much, you know. I reread every comment that's left on them. We love to hear questions about them. Yes, Roval. Ooh, we'll see you. I think that's next week. Yep. We will definitely see you there. It's very fun. We had a lot of fun, Mars, and I'm making the PowerPoint, so we'll be happy to see you in there. I know there's some people who listen for that. To those who don't know, I will be promoting it in no worries, Nixioto. We're glad to have you, and thank you for the follow. And hope to see you around in coming streams. We have a fun little scribble.io stream coming up on Sunday. That is a TTRPG related prompts. That'll be a fun little thing.
So to give newcomers a rundown of our stream schedule, typically on Sundays we're doing TTRPG related streams, but still like art related. So like Ori's drawing something or I'm describing something to her. It's usually more along the lines of a game of some kind. And then Tuesdays are our Ace Attorney nights. That's when we're joined by another friend of ours, Dylan, who helps us play the game. And then Thursdays are typically our chat plays and our comic corner nights.
Which is what you saw today. This is comic corner.
Yes.
We usually have varying
you can
topics
decide
of
which
stuff.
one you'd like to come to.
Yeah, if you are interested in joining our Discord,
all of them, please don't hesitate.
That has our schedule every week. That's the best place to see the schedule. I think Twitch is updated.
Don't post it on social media as much as we should.
It's hard, man.
It's
hard. Discord's the best place to follow for us, anything like that. For people who didn't know what Roval was talking about, in Kaz's Discord, another friend of ours, we are going to be having a little seminar on how to start your webcomic, which we will promote in the Discord. That's actually next Saturday, so you'll hear about it next week. It's a little early for us to do it. Oh yeah, and Pastry Puff, you're a lovely addition to our community. I'm so happy that you have joined and stuck around. I believe Enthuse is the same. Joined for Ace Attorney, stuck for everything else. I love that. That makes me happy.
Honor.
I'm glad that. Same with Lakitu. Lakitu has done it too. Lakitu comes around for a lot of things as well. So, very happy to have you all. For whatever you join for, whatever you stick around for, we're always happy to have you in here. Whether you're active or just lurking, it's always nice to have. So, thank you all. And we'll see everybody who comes on Sunday. Good night.
Yes. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Oh, I forgot about that. Happy weekend. Bye.